that's sort of what we're going to learn about this team. Now let's dive into what's going to impact this football game. And let's begin with the matchups. I think there's a couple, 2 to 3 matchups on both sides of the ball that are going to have the biggest impact on this game. We're going to start with the offense. And this is going to be an outside receivers, Braden Lindsey, Kevin Austin, Lorenzo Styles, against the what I believe to be talented North Carolina cornerbacks. The cornerbacks in North Carolina are actually pretty good. Tony Grimes and Kyler Mcmichael.
Sure. Yeah, right.
Kyler Mcmichael and Tony Grimes are both top 100 recruits. Kyler Mcmichael came from Clemson. Tony Grimes should be just a freshman this year. He graduated early from high school, reclassified, so he could be a freshman last year, and it's paying off for him because he has a year under his belt. Notre Dame picked on him a little bit in this matchup last year, and as we kind of talked about some of the young freshmen at Notre Dame, sometimes those early struggles as a freshman can make you better the next year. And I think Tony's ascending. He's still a young player,
sure,
but he's ascending. But the outside receivers have been far too inconsistent for me this season. Some weeks Kevin Austin looks great. Or not great, really good. Braden Lindsey has his moments, and then other times they disappear. We didn't see a whole lot from Braden Lindsey last week. We saw Kevin Austin not make a couple plays he needs to make. Will they step up? They have to play well. They're going to need to – look, here's the deal. They're going to need to do some things on the outside that give them big plays, that give them an opportunity to get the chunks. They're flat out going to need that in this game. So that's the first matchup for me that I'm looking for.
Well, I will skip to my second matchup then because it basically is very similar to what you have, and we'll stay on the same page. I have basically just Kevin Austin versus the corners, Tony Grimes and Kyler Mcmichael, because, look, I think that Kevin Austin is still maturing. Everybody has to remember, as much as I love watching him in preseason practice and, you know, how he is a specimen at wide receiver and all of those different things, he's basically a freshman as far as playing time is concerned. I think people forget that a little bit since he's academically a senior. And he's still learning and he's still maturing and he's still, you know, almost learning on the job, right? And he just needs to learn to be more consistent. And I think this is a great game for him to get back to being consistent. No more of this ebb and flow, up and down, you know, dropping passes when it's important, you know, battling for those 50-50 balls and winning some of them. I realize in retrospect, people think that he caught that ball and it wasn't an interception. Don't make it that close. I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but don't give them that opportunity, right? Don't give the refs an opportunity to take the possession away from you. So I want to see him step up. And I think this is a great game for him to have that opportunity. I kind of singled him out. I mean, you're right about the other outside receivers. You're absolutely right. But I've kind of got my eyes on him because I think, number one, I think he needs to come back next year to hone in what he's been doing. But I think he needs to start ascending now. We talked about the offense ascending. I think a lot of that has to do with Kevin Austin. Who's going to be the alpha? It's okay to have an alpha at wide receiver. Yeah. He can be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to see that start.
Yeah. Somebody just sent a comment. Y'all say Austin is like a freshman, but don't have same standards for O-line. Austin is a senior. He needs to play like it. No, he's not. It's not the same thing. Because number one, if Josh Lugg would have been suspended and missed his whole second season and then got injured and missed his whole third season, then I would have a different conversation. I did not say that he's like a freshman. Vince did.
I did.
Okay?
I said it.
I don't think he's like a freshman. I think he's more like a sophomore because he actually played as a freshman.
He did a little bit, yeah.
So I will disagree with that. But the fact is he did not play the entire 2019 season. He did not play the entire 2020 season especially 2020 because he was injured. He didn't play. Josh Lugg didn't miss an entire season of football. Zeke Correll did not miss an entire season of football. So I'm sorry that just doesn't fly. That response doesn't fly. He doesn't need to play like a senior. He needs to play better than he has.
Correct.
And so to me, I don't think that's a valid response. For me, I think, Vince, you're still kind of looking at it from a big picture standpoint, which I completely understand. You're allowed to do that. We don't have to be on the same page. For me, the reason I went with Lindsey and Styles is because these matchups, I'm more concerned with North Carolina. This is a North Carolina thing for me. You're looking more like ascending, and totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about taking it to the next level for all of them. Somebody has to step up. If Kevin Austin doesn't play well, but Braden Lindsey and Lorenzo Styles do, or Deion Colsey does, then it doesn't matter if Kevin Austin doesn't play well in this game. So that's why I include all of them. If Kevin Austin plays great, then that's phenomenal, but it's about all of them. So to me, that kind of leads into my next matchup, because to me, this is a pass game matchup in a lot of ways for me.
Okay.
Yeah, Notre Dame can run, but they've got to be successful in the pass game to really play the level that they need to play in this game. And that, I just feel like, I said it the other day, I feel like it this way. I feel like this is a big Avery Davis game.
Ooh, nice.
And so getting Avery Davis in matchups against their safeties, because the corners are pretty good. Like if Lindsey and Austin and Styles or Colsey play well in this game, you will have earned that, because I like the corners at North Carolina. I don't think they're the main problem. I think their scheme is a problem, and I think their safeties are a problem. And it's going to tie in, and I don't know what one of your other points will, but I need to tie it into my third point.
That's fine
to make this.
I'm kind of all over
my third matchup.
So.
Tommy Reese versus Jay Bateman. Okay, so I'm gonna have some fun here. I'm not being serious when I say this, but I hung 600 up on Jay Bateman when I coached against him. All right, so I've set the bar for Coach Reese. All right, so when I coached against Jay Bateman back when he was at Siena and I was at Duquesne, we put up over 600 on him. Okay, we threw for almost 400 yards. I'm just saying, Coach. I set the standard. Now let's live up to it.
I think you need to drop a note on Coach Reese's front door.
I would like to still remain on his good side, so I'm going to not do that. I'm having some fun with that. The point being, this is a great opportunity for Tommy Reese to really show himself and the smart coach that I believe he is, because Jay Bateman's defensive scheme is very unsound. There's a lot of ways to use formations, motions, tempo, different things along those lines, moving the pocket. There's a lot of different things you can do to create big play opportunities. And the one thing we haven't seen Coach Reese do a great job of, he's really good at stringing together plays. But where I would like to see him sort of take a page out of the Chip Long playbook is Chip was great at, okay, in this drive, there's this, we have about 4 or 5 plays that we can do that we think are going to be big plays, so like a rollout throwback, something like that, a wheel concept, something where he felt like by doing this, we're going to get a big play. I would like to see Coach Reese do that, because I think this is a defense that you can do that really well against. And we've seen other teams do it, where you use your formations, put Avery Davis backside by himself and put 2 receivers to the field, and then motion another guy outside. That causes North Carolina to have to overreact, and then bam, you hit him with the post or a seam or something like that. And so to me, those are things that I want to see from him in this game. They're going to tell me he's really taken his play calling to that next level. That's something that I want to see from him. And there's things you can do in the run game. There's all types of different things that you can do. This is a big opportunity for Tommy Reese to show me that, hey, he's taking his game to the next level.
All right, I'll dive into a couple more of mine since you rolled through yours, right? All 3 of yours? Yes? Okay. All right. So look, I mentioned that I was probably going to go this route on offense, and I went this route. I have Kane Madden versus the interior of the defensive line for North Carolina, and here's why. I agree with you that this is going to be a pass-first game for the most part, and that has been Kane Madden's weakest point. And so I want to see him step up a little bit, and I know that we've seen 7 games, and maybe that's just never going to happen. Maybe it's not. But I don't want to see him pass blocking against air. If there's nobody on you, help out the guy next to you, whether it's Patterson, whether it's Lugg, whatever the case may be, help him out. Give him a little shove, but then stay set so that you can pick up if, there's a slant coming or a twist or whatever, that's fine. Give one of these, give one of these, whatever. I need to see him step up. I do not want to see a situation where his gaps are getting abused on a regular basis, because I do think that North Carolina is going to play a lot of games. I think that they're going to test this offensive line. Look, there's going to be mistakes, I'm sure, made by all 5 of them, but I'm going to focus on 62 today and this weekend, and I want to see him step. Look, you're a 6th-year senior. It's time to take control of this offensive line and be the All-American that you are. I'll leave it at that. That's where I'm at with him. My third point is kind of interesting, I think. I went with Tyler Buckner versus the defense. I want to see what their plan is for Tyler Buckner. We talked about this offense evolving, and we talked about them taking it to the next level and building on what they did. Last week, we saw a defined game plan for Tyler Buckner. I want to see that continue, but we're already talking about the fact that we think this is going to be a pass-first type of game, maybe an RPO type of game.
It needs to be.
How does that look with Tyler Buckner? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And how is North Carolina going to play when he comes into the game? I think that's a big question mark right now. I think we're all very comfortable with how Jack Cohn is going to play if they continue to do what we think the offense is going to do. I think we're all very comfortable with what he brings to the table. I want to see what their plans are for Tyler Buckner. Right? Are they expanding the game plan? Is he going to be a run first guy
not.
Still? I know. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I want to see his playbook expanded. I want to see. I love the RPOs with him in there, and the fact that he pulled and went. I loved it. It was great. So I want to see some more of that. I want to see his defined role expanded a little bit and see him blossom a little bit more in this game, because I think this game and moving forward is a chance to really get Tyler Buckner some action and get some confidence and really start working him and getting him ready if you think that he's the future of this team.
Yeah, right now I'm focused on the now, and I still don't think Tyler Buckner right now having an expanded game plan is what I want to see. I'm not there yet. I mean, I'm high on Tyler Buckner, but I still believe this team is at its best when Jack Cohn's starting quarterback.
I do
playing
too.
An up-tempo offense. So I don't think you can say that and then say, but I want an expanded role for Tyler Buckner. I don't think I'm ready for that. I want to see him. I want to see him perfect what they had him do last week first, which is just come. I mean, I think last week we did kind of see that. We saw an expanded role from him based on what they did with him early in the season, which was just kind of Cohen and run. Goes in and throws his first 2 passes.
Sure.
You know, I feel like right now they need to they still need to figure out their main offense before they can focus too much on expanding their Tyler Buckner package. If you're going to expand your Tyler Buckner package, just make him your starting quarterback. I still think there's a lot that we need to learn about the Jack Cohn-led offense, and that in this weekend's going to be a big part of that.
What I want to see is honestly, the package I want to see is Tyler Buckner in the red zone.
Yes, 100%.
But I want there to be options in the red zone. Sure. I don't want it to be 13 personnel with him back there.
But I think you can go 13. But I think you can go 13 personnel with him and get creative within that. Is my thing in the red zone.
Well, I want to see creativity in the red zone with him. I don't want to see the same thing over and over.
Agree.
That's what I'm talking about expanding. I
agree with you completely. Yes,
within his skill set, or not skill set, but within his package,
his
or
role.
whatever.
Yeah,
his role. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And again, I don't think that necessarily means you can't go 13 personnel. I think if you're going to go 13 personnel, and Tyler Buckner's in the game, you're going to have more success throwing out of that with Tyler Buckner than you will with Jack Cohn.
You're very limited in 13 personnel with Jack Cohn.
Right, because he's not going to run. You can't boot. There's just a lot less you can do.
Right.
Got a couple things here before we move on to the defense. Bronx ND fan with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much for that. I still love his avatar. So clearly he got the IB hat from the store. Right. So I appreciate that very, very much, and I appreciate you being back. I'm glad that you're back home, and it is definitely a big game this weekend. We also have a super chat from Beatsville. You two seem to be fine with the left side of the offensive line. So how does the weaker right side affect offensive game calling in your respective opinions? I wouldn't say that I'm fine with the left side of the line. I don't think one game against a bad USC defense makes me like they're the next McGlinchey and Nelson. So I guess I don't have that same level of confidence that Vince does with that side's good to go now. No, I think the whole line as a whole still has a lot to prove to me. Sure. One game against a team that we said had a bad front and a bad front seven outside of Drake Jackson, doesn't mean that, you've got it all figured out. I still need to see, because this defense is going to throw a lot more at Notre Dame than USC did. A lot more stunts, a lot more twists, a lot more pressures. I'll be shocked if North Carolina doesn't bring a corner fire in this game. Absolutely shocked.
Well, we've been shocked the last two games.
So
it hasn't happened.
Yeah. So, Virginia Tech did. They brought a corner fire.
That's right.
Notre Dame threw a screen. It blew up a screen. They threw a screen behind it. But USC did not.
Right.
North Carolina is not going to just sit back and do what USC did. So I still have a lot I need to see from them. And also we need to see Kane Madden step up and play better. But I don't think the left side of the line is there yet. I think the whole offensive line has to play better.
And let me
continue
clarify,
to play better.
I'm not fine with the left side. I am happy that they made the change, and I think they have the right two guys there moving forward.
Right.
That's
now they have to say. I gotcha. Okay.
Now they have to continue to.
So you're just happy that they addressed the left side.
Yeah.
You think they have a combination that gives them a chance to be successful.
And if you'd have told me that they were going to change the offensive line, I would have told you were a liar and you were lying to my face, at the beginning of the season. I would have never believed it. And they did it. And so I got to give them credit, right? So I think that they are moving in the right direction. Again, and somebody earlier said that, about the offensive line being young or whatever. I give them a little bit of a pass on the left side because those guys are actually young. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting them to be the McGlinchey-Nelson combination of their final year at Notre Dame. That's not what I'm anticipating. So I do give them a little bit of a pass. But again, they have to keep getting better. But I think these two guys will keep getting better. So that's where my confidence lies.
So let's go defense, Vince. And I guarantee you and I both have this one. Houston Griffith, DJ Brown, and Isaiah Pryor against Josh Downs scares the ever-living snot out of me.
Right. It's number one, actually. I know that you're shocked by that.
Let's go. Let's roll with it. Go. Talk to me about that matchup, because the one thing we talked about earlier this week is North Carolina does a phenomenal job of using formations and motions and shifts and different things to get Josh Downs isolated on safeties. You can't avoid it. You can't.
And I think you need to throw in Tariq Bracy into that mix too, because I do think he's going to be involved in the plan for Downs, right? So, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, he is going to stress the safety position the entire game. Number one, because that's what they do, and number two, because your best safety's on the bench, and they are going to force DJ Brown, Houston Griffith, Isaiah Pryor, as you mentioned. They're going to force those guys to play, and they're going to force those guys to play well in order to stop Downs. You are not going to be successful defensively unless you have a game plan for Downs, and your safeties are a huge part of that. And so you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, and whether it's bracketing or rerouting or whatever you think you need to do, you need to have a plan, and it can't be the same thing over and over again, because they will have a plan to counteract that plan, right? So you need to be multiple in your plan to stop Josh Downs.
Number two, Myron Tungvaloa and Jason Adamiola against the offensive tackles from North Carolina.
Ooh,
and the reason I go there is because I predict that Notre Dame's going to run a lot of three-man fronts.
And Foskey's going to be at linebacker.
And unfortunately, Foskey's going to be doing a lot of dropping into coverage on first and second down. I hope I'm wrong. I would much rather see them go three down with Foskey and Adamiola and MTA on the line together and put another linebacker or an extra DB or something on the back level.
Can you imagine?
I don't think they're going to do that
on the line together.
We've been talking about that all year, and they haven't done it yet. So unless they've been holding it for this game, I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm just going realistic. Okay, that means that Jason Adamiola and Myron Tungvaloa have to dominate on the edge. One of the keys to success last season against North Carolina was the ability of Dalen Hayes and Adetokunbo Ogundeji to just destroy the tackles in the run game. I remember times where they would try to pull on Adi, and he would just blow it up and just take that inside arm and just knock the guy back, and like line of scrimmage set, and they'd have to do a quick cut, and the linebackers could just rally. He was so good against the run last year. And there was that one play, if you remember, where he did that, and it was a 3rd down and 1, I think. It was 3rd and short. And he did that, and I think it was Michael Carter bounced it outside, and Hadi chased him down and brought him down short of the sticks. It was just a phenomenal play.
Yeah.
They were great last year. And Isaiah Foskey had some good plays last year too. in some 4-down fronts. But you're going to need to see those guys be great against the run. Jason Adamula, great against the run. Myron, great against the run. And then, of course, they need to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. They didn't consistently put pressure on the quarterback last week out of the 3-man fronts. Now, it's hard to do that. There's 5 dudes blocking 3, right? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. That's not a criticism, but the reality is if that's the situation they're going to put themselves in, they have to put pressure on the quarterback because you can't let Sam Howell sit back like Keaton Slovis. You can't, because this team will pick you apart, and he will take shots. He is an aggressive downfield thrower, and he's a very good downfield thrower. If you let him sit back and get comfortable as much as Keaton Slovis did last week, he's going to pick you apart. Because I don't think Keaton Slovis is very good. I've been saying that for 3 years now.
I never have, yeah.
Sam Howell's good, right? He's a really good college quarterback. So they're going to have to pressure him. I hope that I'm wrong about just the 3-man pressures and dropping 8. I hope I'm wrong about that. But if I'm not, then it's imperative for those 2 guys to be really good at putting pressure on the quarterback and dominating the run game.
I will say that my second one, I had Myron and Foskey versus the tackles. I did have that. I agree with your assessment that they're probably going to go a lot of 3 front. Somebody alerted me to the fact that Foskey has 8 sacks, and the record at Notre Dame in a single season is 13.
I think it's 13 and a half.
Why not let him just pin his ears back and go, man? Like he could dominate that total. He could dominate.
That's why I don't have him on the list, because it's not even a key matchup. Because not because they're going to drop him, but when he comes, they're not going to be able to block him.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
Nobody has yet.
He could have 2 sacks in this game and be that much closer to this record.
Well, and I'm not even as concerned as much about the sacks as I am about the consistent pressure of just not letting Sam Howell get comfortable. That's my bigger fear. So we'll see what he does, but yeah, that's the tackles just aren't great, and Notre Dame needs to be able to win that battle. And then the fine one for me is Clarence Lewis against whoever's matched up against him on a given snap. He's had a few rough games in a row. I mean, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, and USC, 4 rough games in a row.
Yeah.
Clarence is better than what he's shown. He was better last year than what he's shown this year. He's going to have to step up and bounce back, and this would be the perfect game for that. He's seen this offense before. He's played against this offense before. I think that's something that should help him, because remember, he came in. This is the game he came in off the bench for Tariq Bracy.
Okay,
and he hasn't seen. I mean, he didn't play against USC last year. He didn't get to play against Wisconsin last year. He didn't get to play against Virginia Tech last year because they didn't play any of those teams last year. And I'm trying to think of and he didn't play. So USC, Cincinnati, he didn't play last year. So usually a lot of times a sophomore is playing against people he's played against before. Well, because of how crazy last year's schedule was, Clarence didn't get a chance to do that. So this is a team he's played before. How is that going to help him? And I thought he got beat on one play. He got beat on a 40-something yard gain, Vince, but it was called back because of a holding penalty, because the quarterback had all day to throw. He was actually pretty decent coverage early on, but you can't cover all day.
Right.
So I thought Clarence played really well last year when he came in. We need to get back to him playing better football. And so they're going to go after him. There's no question about it. And he's going to have to hold up and not give up big plays in this game.
Agreed. I think that's a really good one. My third one, I just have Drew White, Bo Bauer, basically the linebackers. And I had versus Ty Chandler, but it's also versus Sam Howell. But I will keep since I wrote it down, I will keep Ty Chandler, because I think it's going to be up to these linebackers to really shut down this run game and make North Carolina one-dimensional. And I realize making them one-dimensional still means Sam Howell has the ball in his hands and he can do some things. But then I added Sam Howell in there, not because of his passing, but because of his running.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to contain him. And I think a lot of that has to do with the linebackers, right? Don't over pursue. Don't peek when there's nothing to peek at, right? And don't turn your back on Sam Howell, because he will squirt out and he will start moving the chains with his feet. And I think that's going to fall on the linebackers. And if they can contain Chandler in the run game and then keep Sam Howell from hurting them with his legs,
mm-hmm.
I think that this defense can be very successful against North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. I want to do this real quick for Tyler Reese. He asks, please break down for me what 12 and 13 personnel mean. So we've done this in the past, but I know that there's like a lot of new people to the channel. So
awesome.
this is a great question, Tyler, because it allows us to just kind of remind some of the new people that weren't here with us when we did this over the summer. So 12 and 13 personnel is essentially a personnel grouping. And so most teams, not all, because some teams have like, they'll give them names. I coached on one team where our personnel was basically an animal name, like tiger package, all those type of things. Most teams will give it a number, and it's just sort of a traditional football thing. And essentially how it goes is the first number is the number of running backs in the personnel grouping. The second number is the number of tight ends. And then there is no third number because it's basically like, there's 5. Right, there's 5 linemen, 1 quarterback. This is for the skill players. And so 12 personnel means 1 running back, 2 tight ends, which would then mean 2 receivers. 13 personnel is 1 running back, 3 tight ends, and then 1 receiver. We've seen some 14 personnel from Notre Dame, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 4 tight ends. We've seen 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. We've seen
No?
maybe once, 22.
Okay.
We've seen 20 personnel, which is 2 running backs, 0 tight ends, which means 3 receivers. And then Notre Dame's primary formation is still 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 1 and 1, and then 3 wide receivers. So that's what that means. So just running back, tight end, running back, tight end is basically what that means as far as a personnel group. So that way, I can explain to you what 12 and 13 mean, but I wanted to also kind of do the bigger thing. So that way, when we start throwing on 20 and 21, 2 formations or personnel groupings, I hope we see this weekend. We didn't see as much of that against USC, understandably so, because Chris Tyree was hurt. Yeah. But Brian Kelly said today that he should be back this weekend. Hopefully he is.
Hopefully.
And we'll get to see more of that. But Tyler, very good question, and that's what that means.
Before we go to the keys, because I know that's where we're headed next, Brian, they were talking about Blake Fisher coming back, and we haven't heard anything about Blake Fisher.
Kelly talked about that today.
Okay.
Yeah, he talked about that today, and he said his recovery is going well, but it doesn't necessarily mean he'll play this year, is what Kelly said.
People are saying, you can play him 4 games and you can redshirt him. Look, Blake Fisher doesn't need a red shirt. He's not going to be here for a red shirt. Okay,
no,
I just want to
unless
throw that
things
out
don't
there.
Unless things don't go well.
Right, and then he's not going to play anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't believe a red shirt is even in the conversation with him. So
correct.
Moving forward,
they will redshirt him just because you'd be silly not to redshirt him. But it won't matter, I don't think, at the end of the day.
Exactly.